The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We're not talking lawns or grass here. We're talking about people, process, and profits. The things deep within the business that need focus to scale a successful company. From hiring the right people and managing your team, to improving your operations and mastering your finances, we've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Tommy here with McFarland Stanford. We got another great episode of Roots of Success podcast, and I've got a special guest for all of you out there listening. His name is Marty Grunder, and we're super excited to finally nail down his busy schedule, traveling the world as a business owner and coach with the Grow Group. So let me do a little small introduction in case you've been living under a rock these last many years. He's the founder and CEO of the Grow Group, also owner of Grunder Landscaping Company in Dayton, Ohio, one of the most successful operations of its kind in the Midwest. The great thing about Marty is he is an active, full-time landscape professional, so it makes him super uniquely positioned to deliver real-world guidance to the Grow Group clients that are either private coaching or in peer groups, etc. He's got more than 50 local and national design awards, a two-time winner of the Better Business Bureau's Eclipse Integrity Award, has himself named as Entrepreneur of the Year by both Ernst & Young and U.S. Small Business Administration. Also, he's an author that's 9 super simple steps to entrepreneurial success. And most importantly, he's coached tens of hundreds of landscape professionals across the U.S. and Canada. Welcome, Marty Grunder.
Tommy, thanks for having me. That's a very nice introduction. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. We're super excited, and we want to learn so much from Marty. He's got so much experience of lots of failures, lots of trials and errors. And I love the fact that he's got Grunder Landscape to sort of be knee deep in a lot of things that happen over the course of a year in a landscape company. So let's dive right into it. Most importantly, we want to know about Grunder Landscape in Dayton, Ohio, and how it got started.
Probably very similar to all the other landscape professionals that are listening that own their own businesses. I grew up on what you would maybe call a gentleman's farm. It was just a little piece of property. We had a couple horses, a little orchard that we grew our own fruit. We had a big garden. I had a go-kart that my brother and I would terrorize each other with. Shared a bedroom with my younger brother and sister. Our grandmother lived with us. Started the business to make money to go to college because while my parents were both college graduates, they weren't very good with their money. And if we were going to go to college, we were going to have to take a loan or pay for it ourselves. And my folks ended up getting divorced when I was 21, Tommy. Without getting into the whole story, they both were wonderful to me, but most of their arguments were over money. And I'm not going to mislead everyone listening by saying, I used that as my defining moment that I was bound and determined to be successful and make money. It wasn't like that. I just didn't want to have debt. The thought of debt scared the heck out of me. I thought this business would enable me to pay for school and to not take on debt, and I was right. The thing I'm most proud of is that I paid for my entire college education with this company that I still am a part of today. So,
very good.
There's probably a lot of people watching this nodding their head like I did the same thing. I just started mowing grass. I didn't realize you could make this much money. I kept working, and here we are today.
I love that fact. You have humble beginnings. I think a lot of us can attribute to that, myself as well. I remember I had newspaper route as a kid, and my dad has a side job of throwing newspapers. And I'm telling you, I did not do newspapers during the school week because I had school, but Saturday morning and Sunday morning, I'd get up at 3 a.m. and go throw newspapers for like 3 hours in the morning. How many people are working at 3 or 4 a.m. when they're 13, 14, 15 years old? I eventually got my license and had my own route, and I was driving at 4 in the morning throwing newspapers.
Right.
Now, some of you on this podcast have no idea what that is, but once upon a time, we used to get a newspaper in our driveway and everyone would read it.
Right. That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. So humble beginnings is what makes us to what we are today. That's great. So you got this business called Grunder Landscaping. How did it get to 1 million? I feel like a lot of people are like, you're in the trenches, right? You're with the guy, you're on a crew, you're trying to figure things out. We have people starting to join with us at that $1 million mark. That's hard. And to get to 3 to 5, but tell us some things that really sets you apart that you really had to figure out in a small business.
Yeah, Tommy, is as you explained, being a coach, I have a lot of relevance to every step of the journey. We're going to do 12 million this year at Grunder Landscape, and our plan is to be a $30 million a year company by 2030, and we'll get there. You can mark that down. But each step is incremental growth, and what got us to 1 million was nothing short of all out hustle. When a landscape professional is working on his or her business to get it to 1 million, you're pretty much saying yes to everything. And in the process of saying yes, you're making mistakes, you're learning. I always tell people, look, today I'm going to be with you 45 minutes on this virtual learning event, because if I were to talk to you about my successes, that's all we can talk about is 45 minutes. If we're going to talk about my failures, we're going to have like a 7-year-long course. You name a mistake, I've made it. Yeah. When you're running a smaller business and you're making mistakes, you can kind of recover. You know all your people's names. You know all your customers' names. You're probably doing the bookkeeping. You're doing the selling. You're doing payroll. You're doing HR. You're doing all that. And you just kind of will it over the line to hit 1 million. But what we found, Tommy, and I've shared this with you in the past, what gets the owner of a landscaping business to 1 million is saying yes. What gets them beyond 1 million is saying no. Your span of control weakens the larger you are, and you can't be involved in everything. You can't scale that. You can't do that. So you have to say no to things that don't fit your wheelhouse, that don't fit your value proposition, that you're not good at. You have to turn away from things.
Yeah.
And the larger you get and you make the jump from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10, it's all about being able to scale. It's about being able to replicate things. It's about being able to hire a salesperson. There's no way the systems I used when I was, at 1 million would work today. I mean, they were pieces of paper. They were spreadsheets. They were cans and strings. Okay. We're talking basic, rudimentary, blood and guts in the trenches kind to get things over. And as you go, your profits become greater. They should. You're able to afford, you maybe can have someone like McFarland Stanford or the Grow Group help you grow your business. You can go paperless like we are today with tablets and things like that. And it's almost like you have to spend money to make money. But, like I always tell people, look, if you don't have any money, you can't spend it. So the business to get to 1 million was a lot of bootstrapping, a lot of hustle, and just a lot of hard work. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between what you do at 3 and what you do at 10. You just do more of it. And in each step, the owner has to be able to get out of the way more. They've got to let their baby be handled by someone else. And I think that's trouble. I think the other thing I should say is that it's okay if you don't want to grow. If you have a $2.5 million business and it's throwing down 20%, and you're happy because, it feeds your lifestyle, you like your job, there's nothing wrong with that, Tommy. Not everybody wants to go to 30 million like I do. I understand that. There is nothing wrong with that at all.
Right. Love it. Love it. It's not about the top line growing. It's about the development of everybody. How do we better your team and how do you develop better operations? Accountability.
Well, you and I both know, you and I, we're not going to say names, but you and I both know a company doing $25 million a year that's not making any money. And you and I both know a $3 million a year company that's netting 20%. Yep. So one has $25 million worth of headaches, not making anything. The other one grosses $3 million and nets $600,000 about. That's pretty impressive. So, we go to things like Elevate, we go to Grow, we have a beer, we have a drink, we talk about our top line, but we don't talk about our bottom line. And I understand why you don't. I don't want to talk about my bottom line with strangers. That's the power of the peer groups that we partner with your fine company on in getting people in situations where it's a confidential setting that you can talk about that stuff. But, like we're both agreed, it's fine if you don't want to. I don't think it's fine if you don't want to grow, because to me, grow means you're always getting better. But
Right.
I think it's fine if you're not interested in having a $10 million a year company. And
Yeah.
I will never begrudge anybody for having a highly functioning 2, 3, 4, $5 million a year company. Good for them.
I 100% agree. That means you're doing a lot of right things at a $3 million net 20%. I'm
Absolutely.
going to come learn from you, which is great. So you hit on a subject, and I know this Grunder Landscape was at 5 million for however long, right? And boy, we've talked about this numerous times. And if you ever go to see Grunder in Dayton, and if you haven't been, you have to go see their operation. He will explain it to you of where they've been. But Marty, there's this $5 million mark that you guys were at forever. What happened?
Tommy, we were at the $4 to $5 million level for more than 10 years. Okay. And it's kind of like Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, if you've ever read it, which it's about a 20-year-old book, but it's a fantastic book. And the premise that Collins makes is that good is the enemy of great. That because you're good, because you're happy, because you're doing good things, you don't pursue greatness out of fear, out of whatever. And that's what happened to me. I had a whole bunch of really nice people here. Every year they'd perform. Every year we'd do 5 million. Every year, our accountant would say, man, you did it again. You hit 5 million. You got a really healthy bottom line. Marty, when you turn 60, you're going to be in a great place financially. And oh my goodness, you have this other company completely separate from Grunder, and it's thriving and it's growing and it's doing really well. I mean, congratulations, Marty. Way to go. I mean, don't just keep doing what you're doing. Don't screw it up. And I don't, to say I got complacent maybe isn't the right word, because I was working really hard, but I was spending more of my energy growing the Grow Group. I don't know if you know this or not, Tommy, but I used to speak 40 to 70 times a year, and I was working for all kinds of companies. I mean, you name a franchise, I probably did a keynote for them. Molly Maids. I did stuff for Ford, National City Mortgage, all over the country speaking. And I was like a hired gun for that. And when we got into these peer groups, it almost, to be completely blunt with all of your listeners, I started to get really frustrated with myself that seemingly people that had less structure in place than I did were doing $10 million. They were doing really, really well. And here I am gallivanting all over the country talking about my wonderful $5 million a year business, which is fine. It's nice. Okay. But anyone that knows they could do more with their life, but they're not doing it, that can result in depression and all kinds of other things. And I knew I had so much more potential. So we had to make some bold moves. Some people separated themselves from the organization because they didn't like the new vision and the growth and the pushing that we were doing. Some people we had to let go. There was some hard things to do. The best thing that's ever happened to my business career, aside from meeting my wife, is the hiring of Seth Flum over 11 years ago.
Right.
He started out in sales. We moved him into a general manager role, promoted him to COO, and back in May, he was named president. And in the last 3 years, Tommy, we've tripled the size of the business with no end in sight. It's just a completely different operation. We still do great work. We still do a lot of the things that we did back in the mid 2005 to 2015, but we're doing a lot more of it. And I don't know that a lot of people that have been in business as long as I have been would say at 55, they're having as much fun as they've ever had, but I really, truly am. We're making a difference. We are creating opportunities for our team to grow and succeed. That is part of the statement in our mission statement. And it's just a blast. I was gripping the club too hard, Tommy. I was seeking out perfection when I was never going to get it. And always saying, well, tomorrow we'll do that. Well, that's not healthy. You got to go for it.
100%. Love it. And you talk about this quite often, is Marty getting out of his own way, right? Being the bottleneck. That's true for a lot of business owners, way more majority. What do you mean by gripping the club too tight? Like, give me an example or two that for our audience that says, yeah, I got to get from 1 to 5 and a 5 to 10 or something. I was on a site visit last week and the owner's doing invoicing still. And I'm like,
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, like, and so that's an
So
example, but how relate to that?
the easiest way I could explain it, Tommy, was that I only have one account now that I manage, and it's one of our largest accounts, but I'm very close with the founder of the business. It's a commercial account. We do a lot of work for their executives personally, and I want one account to stay in sales.
Yeah.
One of our new salespeople helps me with it. But other than that, all of my other accounts have been given to someone else. And I had one enormous account, like a dream account, like the kind that you could work your whole life and not have an account like this.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I do best, Tommy, is business development. And nobody here at Grunder and maybe nobody in Dayton, Ohio networks better than I do. I know that sounds cocky, but I'm really good at that. I love people. I love working with people. I love meeting people. I love pleasing people. So what was holding us back was I'd say, "Oh, we can't send anybody over there. I mean, one wrong move and they might screw that up and we'll get
Yeah.
fired."
Agree.
Okay. And so consequently, I was listening to, they were interviewing one of the Cincinnati Bengals the other night. And he said they asked him what else he was good at besides football. And he said juggling. And the interviewer said, "Well, how many balls can you juggle?" And he said, "Well, I can do 3. Can't do any more than that." Well, Tommy, I was trying to juggle like 7 balls.
Yeah. At the same
Okay.
time.
Yeah. And then so meetings would get postponed. Critical thinking time would get postponed.
Yeah.
I knew better than anyone, one of the best things the CEO of an organization can do is to spend time or even get caught daydreaming, looking out the window, thinking about where they might be able to go with the organization. I never had time to do that. I hardly had time to eat lunch.
Yep.
So you think you're working so hard, but you're not really getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
And the sales side was a huge bottleneck and just an overall reluctance to give people the ball and let them run with it, in part because I didn't think they wanted the ball. And what I found out was they wanted the ball, but you're so domineering, Marty, they're not going to ask you for it. So, yeah. And so that was it. I mean, succinctly said, in a microcosm is what was going on here with everything. I had my hands in too many things.
Yeah. It's such a great example. Owners are unwilling to let go because of failure, or I've done this. But when you're juggling 7 balls, you're just sitting here going, well, 1/7 good here, 1/7 good here, 1/7 good here. Oftentimes, as we find business owners doing that, where you got to look at yourself and go, what is something I can pass off and coach that person along the way, whether it be a weekly one-on-one and help them transition to a, I'm getting rid of 5 accounts to Bob, right? How do I coach him to be successful for those 5 accounts? Let's meet once a week and discuss that. That's just one small thing to pass off, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what we did was, so when I started handing off accounts, I would call a client. I'd say, "Hey, Mrs. McGillicuddy, it's Marty Grunder. I'm going to come over with Brad. He's helping me with your account. We've grown a lot, and I need him to help me with your account to make sure we stay on top of things.
Yep.
You can call me whenever you want. He's just going to be helping me." "Okay, Marty, that sounds great."
Yep.
Then I go over there with Brad. Then I suggest Brad to go do a walkthrough and just make sure she's okay. Have Brad email the quote. Pretty soon she realizes, I don't think I'm going to call Marty. I think I'm going to call Brad because I've been talking to him.
Yeah.
I'm driving down the road. I got my card. I got 5 calls. "Hey, Miss McGillicuddy, it's Marty Grunder." "Hey, Marty. Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?" "Good." "Hey, first of all, Brad is awesome. Thank you. I really enjoy him. I don't even have to say anything. It's been handed off." So, those are the little things that I would do. And, to our comment about juggling, when you're trying to juggle 7 things, you're going like this. And so what you try to do is you end up saying, "Well, I can't juggle 7 things. I can juggle 3. I can juggle 3 balls. Actually, I can only do 2. And this is the pace. It isn't stressful.
Yes.
So I'm going to take the other 5 balls and I'm just going to sit them on the table and nothing gets done. The HR plan, the strategic plan, the CapEx budget, the marketing plan, the social media plan, and I'm going to move sales and operations. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to do that every day. But consequently, other things never get done. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what was going on here. It just wasn't getting done. There was no growth in other critical issues of a company trying to grow. There was no way we were going to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good thing. And I think everyone that's listening can relate to that one extreme or the other. So switching gears, we have this thing called the McFarland, Stanford, and Grow Group Strategic Partnership, and we work together on all the peer groups, and we help build the Grow event in February. We do Summit at the end of the year in November. But let's talk about the relationship there. I think we get a lot of questions throughout the year and go, man, I thought you were Grow Group, or I thought you were McFarland. Like, let's start talking into that a little bit.
So we met Jim and Jason at Grow in 2016 that we had in Dallas, Texas at Land Sculptures, Gene and Chris's wonderful company down there.
Yep.
We saw them presenting. They had a station because Gene and Chris said, hey, Jim and Jason are our coaches. Could they please have a station? And so they had a station. It was out back. It was next to a belching kerosene heater. When we do Grow, I go on the tour myself, which a lot of people are amazed, but I go there with my phone and I take notes because I'm there to learn too. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go to their station. I'm listening to them. I'm like, they're really good.
Yeah.
They're really smart. Like, I agree with what they're talking about. Like, that's their philosophy aligns with ours. And when we were done, Vince and we had more business, Tommy, than we knew what to do with. We were doing a really good job. People loved the peer groups that we started. They loved coming to our events, but it was just Vince and I. And, I wasn't interested in growing the Grow Group and hiring people. And I think you have to be the best consultant and coach in the green industry. I think you have to come out of the green industry. And that's what impressed me with McFarland Stanford, that it was a lot of former landscapers. And so we were able to combine what we do really, really well, the organization of the peer group, the whole process and procedure and all the protocols we put in place that you guys now follow. And it was very easy for us to find our lane with you folks and pick up some momentum and grow and help more landscaping companies. Tommy, I wouldn't have been able to do this 25 years ago. I had too big of an ego. I wanted my name on everything.
Yeah.
Now in my 50s, Tommy, I just want to win and I want to help people. I want to help them improve their business, because when you help them improve their business, guess what? They look at you as a secret, maybe a secret methodology. They look at it as an important part. We have clients that we're not practicing drip coaching where we only give you enough and you got to clear everything with us. That's not what we do at the Grow Group or McFarland Stanford. We want you to be able to go on your own, master a lesson, and we'll teach you how to do something else. Yeah. So by partnering with you folks, we were able to get a lot bigger microphone. We were able to help a lot more people and make a greater impact. And it's worked, I think, better than we even thought it would. As you know, we now have over 140 companies in our peer groups, representing over $1.2 billion of combined revenue with all those peer groups. Nobody's impacting more companies in the country than we are. And that's what's important. It's not important that the Grow Group name be on everything. What's important is that we're winning, we're doing well, we work really well with you folks, and it's just been a lot of fun, Tommy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's been great. We bounce off ideas, we hold each other accountable, we put on good group meetings, very structured meetings, and we have a lot of fun doing it. I do miss a little bit of project management and building cool things. Now my satisfaction is helping people grow at the end of the day. Like, and when someone gives me a call all of a sudden and says, man, it worked, or I'm finally doing a one-on-one meeting after 2 years of you pounding it in my head and it's working. And I'm like, oh, that's where we get our satisfaction, right?
Tommy, it's, as you know, we just got back from Italy. We took our legacy peer group over there, 10 landscape professionals with their spouses. Amazing. And the one night we were sitting on the patio and I was talking to Jim at this estate. I said, Jim, I never would have imagined when I started these peer groups over 20 years ago that we would be on the side of a mountain in Italy with fellow landscape pros working on our businesses, getting better. Tommy, if we wouldn't have hooked up with McFarland Stanford, we would still be having our meetings at a Hampton Inn in Topeka, Kansas, and we'd be eating dinner at the Olive Garden, not a fine Italian restaurant in Florence, Italy. Okay.
Yeah.
Jim and Jason and yourself and Chris and the rest of the McFarland Stanford team, Vince, together, we've been able to utilize our strengths. And I think we have an incredible offering now. I really relate to what you're talking about impacting people and helping them grow. It's extremely rewarding.
Extremely rewarding. And that's my excitement every single day. You know, it was really funny. I started coaching a couple of division leaders at a landscape company in the Northeast. And we started our first coaching call last month. And he runs his own division, P&L, team, ops, and all that. And we get it towards the end of the call. It's the very first call we'd had. And he goes, Tommy, are you the guy that has the podcast thing that's going on, like that I hear talking? I go, yeah. He goes, oh my gosh, that's the guy. Whoa, this is going to be awesome. He was just so excited to talk to someone that has the podcast. And that right there just sort of like got goosebumps on my arm that he was that thrilled to have a coaching call. Yeah. And that right there makes your day.
It does. Amen.
You being able to go to Italy. I know we finally pulled you out of your Dayton, Ohio routine and finally got you there. And that experience is just a life-changing experience, as my wife would say when she saw a Taylor Swift concert. But anyways, it's life-changing. It's an absolutely great opportunity that we're actually going to be able to take. You know, the idea is to take every ACE peer group member there and experience.
I know a lot of ACEs listen to your show, Tommy. When you have that opportunity, you have got to go.
Yeah.
I was sure it was a good show, but what Jim has put together with you folks, it's incredible. You got to go. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about peer groups real quick. And that's probably a question on some people's minds. We are specifically ACE peer groups, and ACE stands for Accountability Creates Excellence. We're not your average peer group. Okay.
Right.
We are the best in what we do. Explain what ACE peer groups means to you, differentiated between normal peer groups.
Well, there's a lot of peer groups. And, you know, Tommy, I can't really speak too much to what the other peer groups do. Yeah. I know what ours do. And I think this is where we have a leg up. The fact that all of us running the peer groups are former landscape pros, the fact that I still serve as CEO of a major landscaping company that is experiencing things on a daily basis, it makes us very relatable and it makes us very relevant. Yep. So ours are full of relevant advice and things that we have experienced. The best business people are business people, Tommy, that understand ROI, return on investment. Mm-hmm. And if we could show you how to get to $2 million in a quarter of the time it would take you to do it on your own, avoiding the mistakes that we made in terms of time and money, what is that worth? So the structure that we have with our peer groups that focus on confidentiality and experience share, the hallmarks of our group, the fact that we put you with people that we think you're going to get along with from non-competing regions, the fact that we have a first-class meeting that builds the accountability partners and the calls that go on with the facilitators in between. I mean, we're not talking about something like we get to Kansas City for a peer group meeting and we're figuring it out when we get there. We are talking about a highly systematized and organized group. And then finally, Tommy, the financial benchmarking that we do, the power of 140 companies' financial statements getting benchmarked. As you know, we show 5 major measurements on each financial report. If I would have gotten in a peer group like what we have right now, if there would have been something like this when I was 22 years old, there is no telling where I would be, because I want to win and I want to be around other driven people that have a mindset of growth. And I want to come back every 3 months to my next meeting. And I want to talk about the improvements that I made. There's just countless benefits to being part of a peer group. Last thing I'll say, Tommy, as you know, running a company can be very, very lonely. You know, you can't complain to your team. Who holds you accountable? Your spouse, maybe your banker. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody kind of gently nudging you towards success, questioning what you're doing? You know, being mature enough to be in a group and have somebody offer up some constructive criticism on what you're doing. It's just a beautiful thing. I mean, I can tell you, just getting back from Italy, there's a sense of brotherly love, sisterly love. amongst all the members in our groups that is really, really powerful. And
Yeah.
to know you have somebody you can call when you have an issue, or maybe it's someone you can call to talk about a new milestone that you hit.
Yep.
Or the fact that my company made enough money last year that I just bought a new travel trailer for my family. You can't come into your team and tell them you did that. You don't do stuff like that. I am so excited about what we've done, and I'm so excited about what we're going to do for other owners and leaders of landscaping companies. It To your point that you made 10 minutes ago, it's a very enriching job to be coaching people. Now they got to do the work, but to
Yeah.
be kind of turning their head in the right direction and say, look, go this way, go over there. It's just wonderful, Tommy.
Yeah, it's great. And to hit off that, it's a board of advisors, right? How about you just pick up the phone and call your accountability partner or someone in your group and go, man, this
Amen.
is what I dealt with today. They completely understand 100%, right? That's the power of being, and no one else holds the owner accountable, right? Like you
Right.
mentioned, it's just, but 11 other companies can sit there and go, Marty, you said you were going to do this. What's taking you so
Right.
long, buddy? You've been in here
Right.
for 6 months. What's going on, right?
Right.
Um,
Amen.
that's the part I love. So as we come to a close here, Marty, there's probably some lessons learned along the way in growing a landscape company from 0 to 5 and 5 to 12.
Well, I can tell you that the single most determining factor in the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, the ones that have done really, really well, is drive. It's
Mm.
not what college you graduated from, what your grade point average was, what your mom and dad did for a living. It's the fire that burns. And we see it. We see it in the ones that we work with that come back and you tell them to put together a CapEx schedule and they come back and they've done a CapEx schedule. They dig in, they really dig in and they get it operating. They do the work. They're driven, they're motivated. And so it's mindset. When I hear somebody blaming their team, saying terrible things like they're surrounded by idiots, which by the way, if you think you're surrounded by idiots at your place of work, then you're an idiot because you
Yeah.
hired them. So it's mindset. It's that mindset.
Yeah, 100% agree. You also got to look at yourself in the mirror all the time, right? And when things fail, you always got to look at yourself as the owner going, what could I have done better? When someone
Oh,
leaves a
amen.
company, when you get fired from a job site, it's not pointing the finger at that person or that client. We used to have a rule in our landscape companies that you can never talk bad about clients. You just can't.
Love it. Right.
You just can't. They're there for a reason. And usually the clients that demand a little more, or they call a little more, or text more than you think, is the ones you learn the most from, because it makes you a better person. Everything is a mirror image of me. The wins and losses as a football coach, it comes down to the head coach at the end of the day, right? And they've got to make the team better to move forward.
Well,
So
you said it one way, I say it another way. What am I doing or not doing that's getting me the results I don't want? What am
yeah,
I doing? It's
yeah,
not, well, look what they did. They sabotaged this. They did this. They did that.
yeah.
You know, you're never going to find success, Tommy, if you're looking for someone to blame.
Very, very true. I love it. Well, we got to throw in something that's coming up less than 2 months away. We're going to Banff, Canada, getting up there to see one of the most beautiful places probably on earth. We're holding this thing called Discovery. Why should someone attend a Discovery event?
Well, Tommy, what we realized a few years ago was we got to put people through a real meeting. And then once they see what we're doing, they're like, now I get the magic in the peer group. So we have about 3 days almost, half fun, half education. It's a blast, Tommy. Again, kudos to Jim for the locations that he's come up with and all these things we've done. We've been amazing places, tons
Yeah.
of fun. My wife loves going. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, probably like your wife, it's
Yep.
not that much fun for them to go because they don't know anybody. And
Yeah.
you and I know everybody, but they've gone to this thing and they're like, well, I'm going to get to go, right? That's how much fun it is. But the meeting, the ACE Discovery meeting, is you get to go and you get to see what a real meeting is like. You
Yeah.
get to partake in the ACE Summit. So you're around all our other ACEs and you're going to get a ton of education out of it, even if you don't decide to join. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to go. Missing out on this trip would be a big mistake.
Oh, it's just, I'm super excited. Every year is always a great year. Tons of great content, tons of things, but most importantly, having a drink with anyone and everyone around the ACE program and their significant others. It's the trip of a year. So get signed up. You can go on the McFarland Stanford website. There's a link. There's a link also in the Grow Group website. But definitely get signed up, and we'll see you there. Marty, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Tons of good information, a lot of good insight to pass along to our audience. Can't thank you enough. Maybe we have to do this every year as a learning experience. Would be great, right?
Tommy, I'm happy to come on with you. I appreciate everyone listening, and hopefully in a small way, we help them grow.
100%. Thank you very much, Marty. We'll see you soon.
Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.